When I was a kid, we had a lot of vacant area around our housing development. I guess it was kind of new, and we used to call it the woods. It was an era when kids would just be sent out to play, and we'll see you, when it's dark, come back home. I remember this time when we were all out in this big field, and we saw this light, and it was almost star size when we first noticed it. It wasn't very big, but for some reason we all stood and looked at it. I think I was with 3 of my friends, and the light it got bigger, it got bigger, it got bigger. It was insane, and it was bigger than the sun, and then it was brighter than the sun, and then everything was white, and we were hiding, but there was nowhere to really hide. I mean, we were trying to hide behind a little berm of earth. And then suddenly I realized it was a helicopter. The light went away. We all ran home, kind of terrified. And I didn't think about it too much. I started having night terrors around the same time. My parents thought I was awake, but I was asleep. And they could tell I was terrified of something that I would try to describe, and they couldn't wake me up, and they couldn't understand what I was saying. But what I would say is, I would say the ants. And I remember feeling like, but it's not ants, it's bigger than ants, big ants. But it wasn't big ants, and it was very frustrating. I remember it being very frustrating. And as you came out of that state, it would sort of recede, like the picture would kind of go away. And I had these for years and years. The last one I had, I was 14. In this fit, I threw my mom against the wall. I think when I was awake and I heard that story, maybe that scared it out of me. I never had another one again after that. About 2 years ago, I was sitting with a friend of mine, brilliant guy, author, movie producer, works on regreening the world. We usually talk about things like that. Somehow we got onto the topic of aliens, and then he said, I'm working on this film about the phenomenon. I said, wow, that's really wild. I want to hear more about that. And we were rapping about it. He said, has anything ever happened to you? He said, it's not that uncommon. When I meet people and friends, often they have a story. I said, the only thing that ever happened to me was as a kid, there was this light, it came down, we were all together, and then we realized it was a helicopter, and that was it. And he said, did it make any noise? And it was just like, your story comes crashing down. Did it make any, was there any wind? Was there any dust? And I was like, no, there's none of that. I don't know if he had heard that story before, but he said, yeah, in these situations, sometimes people remember I guess what he would call a cover story or something. I have no idea. I'm not saying that anything happened. All I'm saying is that it was an incredible conversation. Now he's got this movie that just came out, and I think it's worth people talking about, because we've been afraid to talk about it, and we've been made to feel afraid and embarrassed to talk about it for a long, long time. Harry Reid is in this movie. He talks about some phenomenon and why aren't we spending more money? The New York Times reported on a branch of the government called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That program went away. The New York Times later found that it was replaced and funded from a different source by a program called the Unidentified Aerial Task Force. Navy pilots, when they see these things, and you can find this tape, they're looking at it and they're like, holy cow, dude, look at that thing go. Their minds are blown. They don't talk about where is it from, but we don't know the Russians or the Chinese or anybody else to have that kind of capability. It's a phenomenon worth investigating. So this movie's come out that my friend has been involved with. I think that it's already like #1 on Netflix. You can find it online. But I thought for the sake of this, it would just be curious. We've all been convinced that it's nuts to talk about any of this stuff. I don't think it's nutty. If the Air Force can talk about it, if senators can talk about it, then we can talk about it. So if you have something to get off your chest, this would be the time to do it. Drop a comment in below. It can be anything from, hand raiser to a whole story. And it might be nothing. It might be crickets. And there'll also be people who are just commenting, Bogusky, you are out of your mind. That's old school though. I think new school is like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's look into it. Kind of an interesting time. Thanks for watching. I have to go. I've got some friends that yeah. Okay, be right there. All right, we'll see you next time. Like and subscribe.
I knew this was breaking news for the front page of the New York Times.
My gosh. Look at that thing.
We need to accept that we are not alone in the universe.
The federal government, all these years, has covered up everything. It's very, very bad for our country.
There had been visitation, crashed craft, material recovered.
It was not anything from this earth. All I could do is keep a mouth shut.
The public has a right to know.
There's a tremendous resistance. I guarantee every one of them knows that this event happened.
Hiding these dark secrets even from elected presidents.
They came running up here in such a panic. Child can't make that up.
Declassified government documents confirm ongoing UFO incursions at nuclear weapons sites.
Are you saying that there's some evidence that still hasn't seen the light of day?
I'm saying most of it hasn't seen the light of day.
These things are real. They're here. This is happening now.